Welcome to the Time Management Podcast with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I'm a productivity coach, global speaker, time management author, and award-winning entrepreneur on a mission to share the 888 formula with the world and to remind you that it's your time. Leave it to me to bring you new time management tips, tricks, tools, and strategies, to introduce you to guests, research, and case studies from around the world, and to give you a simple 5-step process you can follow to uplevel your productivity, achieve your goals, and create a life that exceeds your wildest dreams. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Welcome to the show. It's you and me, Abigail Barnes, host of the Time Management Podcast, today for a conversation all about procrastination. This episode is for you if you struggle with procrastination. It's also for you if you find yourself leaving everything to the last minute. And this episode is definitely for you if you are ready to learn how to stop procrastinating once and for all. What if the reason that you're procrastinating isn't because you're lazy? And what if the task that you need to complete is actually triggering an underlying factor? And what if that trigger was so automatic that you didn't even notice it happened until once again, the thing that you needed to do didn't get done? And what if you could eliminate that underlying factor and change your reaction to it altogether, aka stop procrastinating and do the thing that you need to do? Well, this week on the podcast, I'll be sharing 3 simple ways that you can stop procrastinating once and for all. We have a ton of things to cover, so without further ado, let's dive in. Let's start out with what is procrastination. And I want to introduce you to my 4 procrastination archetypes that might be keeping you stuck. The first one is analysis paralysis. Maybe you're the kind of procrastinator who needs to constantly know all the variables, understand all of the things, need all of the data. When it comes to this type of procrastination, there will never be enough data. You will never know all of the things, and it will keep you so trapped in a loop. It's insane. Perhaps you're number 2, the bartering bargainer. Maybe you're somebody who says, I just need to do this first. I don't quite feel like it. Maybe I'll start tomorrow. Yeah, I'll definitely do it tomorrow. Or if I just have this thing to eat because I'm really hungry, then I'll do it after that. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you're constantly confused. You're just telling yourself over and over, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I'm just so confused. And perhaps this is your procrastination style. Or maybe you're number 4, deceptively distracted. You're the kind of person who is so busy doing this and so busy doing that and so busy doing the other that you just don't have time to do anything. But you didn't realize all the things you're doing with your time are a subtle form of procrastination. The thing that you needed to do wasn't getting done. The title of the podcast this week is your procrastination a trauma response? As we go through the episode, you will start to have a better understanding of where the need to procrastinate is actually coming from, the root of it, and not just what's happening on the surface. A few episodes ago, I talked about the iceberg analogy, where 1/3 of the iceberg is above the water, 2/3 of the iceberg is below the water. And as this conversation today unfolds, we're going to be talking about the subconscious and how it's actually driving the actions that you're taking. So, which of those 4 procrastination archetypes do you think you fall into and is keeping you stuck? And or maybe your answer is all 4, or a little bit of both, or it depends, or at certain times I'm more one and at other times I'm more the other. That is procrastination in a nutshell. It is the avoidance of doing the thing that we need to be doing. And those are 4 ways that you might be avoiding it. Why do we procrastinate? We're not dumb. We know we're doing it, but why are we actually doing it? In my experience and research on the topic, I truly believe it falls into 4 areas. The first one is the comfort zone. We are more familiar with where we are right now. And if we do the thing, whatever it is most likely to take us out of our comfort zone. Therefore, we procrastinate because of number 2, the fear of the unknown. If I do what it is that I need to do, I am going to be moving into the unknown, and I'm afraid of that. However, what if the unknown could actually be good, could actually be better than this known that we're in right now? Just putting that one out there. And then number 3 is the identity. We know who we are right now. We don't know who we are as our most successful self. We don't know who we are as our failure self. If we procrastinate, then we don't have to go into the unknown of who is successful me, who is unsuccessful me, and what might happen and how might I have to cope with that or deal with that. So it's just then easier to procrastinate. And then number 4, the trauma trigger. So trauma is a very big subject. We don't have time to go into it today, but just for the benefit of this conversation, trauma can fall into a big T trauma, or it can fall into a small t trauma. And as each of us was being raised from the age of 0 to 7 in our young years, we experienced trauma, big T, little t. And our child brain made these things that happen mean something. So what impact is this having on us and our lives right now? Look around your life and see, are you happy with things that are going on, or are there things that you would like to change? Why do we procrastinate even though we know it doesn't serve us to keep procrastinating? And this is the $1 million question. So like I'm saying, it's very layered, and it is most likely for most people to be the result of something that happened when you were younger. And that, again, for reference, might be something that was seriously traumatic and something that your mind just turned into a trauma. Your mind just made a story up about it. So procrastination can sometimes be the stories that we're telling ourselves. Stories like, I can't because ... I want to, but it's not the right ... I need more. If I was, I am afraid of, or something stops me. The list of stories that we tell ourselves can go on and on and on, but these are the most common that I have experienced in my clients, in the audiences, with the people that I work with and the peers that I speak to, and also myself. We all procrastinate. Now, it was the great Jim Rohn who said, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. I want you to really, really hammer this one home to yourself. You are one of those 5. In every story of things that haven't gone well in your life, or things that have gone well in your life, you are one of the characters in that story. And we cannot move forward in our lives until we take responsibility for the fact that we are the common denominator, which can be empowering and disempowering if things are not going the way that we want them to go. However, on the flip side of that means we have the potential for things to go the way we want them to go. So what is a trauma response? Glad you asked. This is an automatic program that responds when it notices something happening. It is a subconscious program, and the job for you, for me, for us, if we want to move forward, if we want to stop procrastinating, is to identify and uncover these subconscious programs, because they are looping in our lives. They are the beliefs we believe, which are creating the habits we are enacting, which are leading to the actions we're taking, which are creating the results we are experiencing. And we loop over and over and over. Now, it's very easy to say these things. And one of the teachers that I have learned from over the years, Abraham Hicks, says that words don't teach, And what they mean by that is we can intellectually know all of the things that I've just been talking about. But if we don't do something, then nothing is going to change. However, intellectually, you might know all of the things. You might know subconscious programming. You might know about trauma. You might know about triggers. You might know about procrastination, but you are not very, very clear about how they are showing up in your life right now. You know, I love to give you homework, which is always optional. The homework for this episode today. Number one, I would like you to spot your patterns. Notice, based on what we have just been discussing, things that you are doing, things that you are saying, which type of procrastination you are implementing to stop yourself from moving forward, because you know what to do. You know why it is that you need to do it. There is a subconscious reason that you're stopping yourself. And it's different for you. It's different for me. It's different for all of us. To change this subconscious programming, you first of all need to know your patterns, because you can't change what you don't know. Our habits are like an infinity cycle with our self-worth. They are looping round and around and around and around. Our habits are a reflection of our self-worth. And when it comes to our time management, they are a direct reflection of our self-worth. If we are not valuing our time, if we are putting a procrastination story above the potential amazing life that we could be living, it's a self-worth problem that needs to be addressed. In episode 25 of the podcast, we talked about imposter syndrome and the impact that this can have on your actions, your stories, your habits, your beliefs. Go back, listen to that episode. In episode 2 of the podcast, I talked about the procrastination perfection loop. I also admitted that I procrastinated for at least 2 years over starting this podcast. And at the time of recording this episode, this week, we have just crossed our 10,000 download mark. In 242 days since starting the podcast, we have had over 10,000 downloads of the podcast in 91 countries around the world. I can hardly believe I am saying this to you, considering 242 days ago, I was recording episode 2, Procrastination Perfection Loop, where I was telling you I didn't know if it was a good idea to start this podcast. And the podcast has been downloaded over 10,000 times around the world. Let that sink in, because I am still trying to process this myself, that the power of that procrastination story nearly stopped once and for all, and has almost stopped it at repeated points. If you are an avid listener of the podcast, you will remember me saying that at points of this journey, whatever you want to call running a podcast, showing up every week, recording the episodes, interviewing the guests, getting it out there, promoting it, telling everybody, asking people to review it, asking people to share it, yada, yada, yada. At every single one of those stages, there has been times when I have wanted to stop. And this has come down to the stories and the belief and the worth and the procrastination and the fear of what if people actually really like it, and what if people actually really tell people, and what if 10,000 downloads turns into 20, turns into 100, turns into 200, turns into 1,000,000. And this is one of the big things with procrastination, is it can have a tendency to go so big it scares us into staying small, to staying where we are. But rather than focusing on what is going to happen in however long, our job is only to take a step now, to take a step today, to do the next thing, and not to worry about the future, because who we are becoming will handle that. Who we are right now can handle what we're doing right now. We don't know how that future version of us is going to be able to handle things, to ace things, to deal with whatever happens. And I would love you to think about it like this. There's a virus in your software, and this virus has hijacked your brain, your software, and this virus is running your life. It is quite simply programming you. It is quietly stealing your time. It is telling you stories. It is making up lies. It is future projecting all kinds of fears and things that you we, us, do not need to be worrying about right now. Episode 15 of the podcast was all about auditing your time. When you change the way you look at your time, the time you have will change. So homework number 2 for this week's episode of the podcast is to track yourself. Track your time. Watch what you're doing. Watch where it's going. Watch what is influencing you. Which brings me on to episode 24, where we had a human design expert come on. If you've not listened to that episode, you probably want to go check out that, because what I'm going to say now may or may not make sense, but I'm going to continue. In the human design chart, there are 9 centers. Some of these centers are open and some of these centers are closed. And in the human design teaching, it says that when you have an open center, you are open to the influences of the world around you. And when you have a closed center, you have your own certainty, your own programming within you. And in essence, the open centers are where we are here to learn how to listen to ourselves. So we hear the outside world, but we still know ourselves anyway. And the closed centers are where we are here to know ourselves, but take on some thoughts from the outside world and still come back to ourselves. So whether some of your centers are open and some of your centers are closed, whether you're a reflector and all of your centers are open, I've got 4 centers open, and these can have a huge impact on me until I become aware. This isn't my voice. This is somebody else. I have been scrolling the Instagrams, the TikToks, on the socials, and I have been influenced by the outside world. For the benefit of this week's episode, I want you to become aware of also what is influencing you. Because if you've open centers, say your head center, your ajna center, the open centers, you are going to be receiving, like an antenna, all of the information from the outside world. And they say that around 70% of people on the planet have an open head center. So that's just for reference. It is more than likely you. And as I said, once we know, we can then do something about it. So it isn't that we're easily influenced and the world can lead us and we do whatever they say. It's that we understand we can be influenced and we have a way of processing it. So whenever I'm sharing human design with people, I will always couch it insofar as use this to confirm your intuition. And people find it so beneficial from the point of view of, oh, so that's why when I've made up my mind and then I read something else, then I'm totally back to where I was again, because they've got an open ajna center. So they don't have that certainty. And you start to see each of us is just so uniquely built. Each of us is so uniquely designed. Each of us is here to learn different life lessons and to put different puzzle pieces into place to create the alchemy that we are here in this lifetime to deliver to the world. And what happens to us helps to evolve these skills within us. If we were all the same, we'd all be the same person in the team, and the team wouldn't succeed, because a team needs diversity. A team needs different people, different skill sets, different influence, different experience. And this is what makes the world such an amazing flavor. Question for you to ask yourself is, who or what is pulling your strings? Are there certain things that are triggering you? Nobody can trigger you when you're aware of the trigger. You might have heard people use this sentence, you made me feel this, you made me. Nobody can make you. Nobody can pull your strings when you become aware of the strings. Nobody can push your buttons when you become aware of the buttons. Your job is to remove the buttons. That's the work. And there is some amazing work by a woman called Byron Katie. We don't have time to go into it, but I am just going to put that one out there for the benefit of this episode to call it complete. She has what she calls 4 liberating questions. So whenever things come up, it's a quick way for you to calibrate the question. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true? How do you react when you believed that thought? Who would you be without that thought? Her work is absolutely amazing. So the third part of this week's episode homework is to observe your pattern triggers. You are spotting your patterns. You are tracking yourself like a detective. You are watching yourself in the third person. You then are, number 3, observing your patterns. Your pattern triggers are going to give you more data when it comes to changing them, removing them, rebranding them, rewording them, etc., etc. I can't believe how fast this episode has gone today. If you have loved this episode, I am going to be running a free webinar. The webinar is called How to Stop Procrastinating Once and for All. I'm going to be sharing my 7 steps to beating procrastination and creating your new success habits today that I first shared in 2016 when I ran something called the Procrastination Breakthrough Club. Perhaps you were even involved in those events. I am going to now be upgrading those 7 steps to include this subconscious mind, this trauma work that I personally have become more familiar with, and we as a collective are talking more and more about now. Back in 2016, the steps didn't include that because it just wasn't something that we were aware of. And this is why we are learners for life. It's so important to recognize that things are improving, things are changing, new information is always coming out. The link for that webinar is in the show notes, How to Stop Procrastinating Once and for All. I would love, love, love to see you on that webinar and to continue this conversation. Once again, the link for that webinar is in the show notes below. It's been my pleasure to have this conversation with you today. Procrastination is something that you, that me, that we, that us do not need to keep alive in our lives anymore. It is a trauma response that we can now remove the trigger from. If this episode has triggered anything in you where you feel like professional help would be beneficial, please, please, please always seek it. If you're a regular, you'll know I've said that over the years since my near-death experience, I have received professional help. I have done many, many trainings with a number of people. I wouldn't be who I am today if I hadn't worked with others, used the support and expertise of others, and had them to keep me accountable as I released stories and released traumas and released triggers. We cannot do this on our own, and we don't need to. There are many, many sources of support out there. And if you have any questions ever, you can always email us. Again, all the links will be in the show notes below. Until next time, my friend, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's your time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to let me know by leaving a review so I can keep the good stuff coming. Come and say hi on Instagram at Success by Design Training, or visit my website successbydesigntraining.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Abigail Barnes. Until next time, don't forget, you are amazing and it's your time.